Arsenal have found the ability to score goals. If you add £300 million worth of talent, turns out you can score more goals. But obviously there's more to it, and we have to give Arteta some credit, because I think Arteta's always had his principles. And the question is, has he evolved from that? Is he doing something completely different? I'd argue in this video he's not. I'd argue a lot of the principles are still the same. He's just got more quality in those areas, but he has tweaked things to get the best out of the individuals in all those areas. Madueke is a different player to Eze, who's a different player to Gyokeres. Yet Arsenal are adapting to certain tactics that are getting the best out of all three at the same time, especially in the absence of Bukayo Saka and Kai Havertz. So let's talk about that in this video. Now, when I talk about adapting the tactics, the manager's got his strengths, but the players do too. Now, the manager's strengths and tactics are in building up through the middle of the pitch. We always know we've had a 3-2 build-up or 2-3 build-up. The idea is to get players packed out in central spaces. We're going to analyse that in a little second, to isolate the wingers. Why do we want to isolate the wingers? Because Arsenal filter so many of the attacks down that side, and that's something that was broken down by Jamie Carragher on Sky Sports, which you can see in this graphic here. Chances created via the middle third, highest and lowest ratios in the Premier League, and Arsenal at 28.9% ranked as the second lowest team for chances created down the middle, with only Forest at 28.5% being lower than Arsenal. So Arsenal don't like to filter their football in terms of creating chances down the middle. We always know that the onus was put on Martinelli and Trossard on the left, or Bukayo Saka on the right, to try and create things. Even Kai Havertz from up front was moving into wider areas, Odegaard into wider areas, to try and create from the area of the pitch too. Now, that makes sense why we've invested so heavily into wider positions, but we will talk about that in a sec, because what Arsenal have adapted to in terms of doing something different is going a little bit longer. Now, the direct side of the game isn't alien to Arsenal. We have gone long, especially when it comes to holding up play via our striker and trying to gain territory, but we're now going longer in a way to unlock our wingers a little bit more. Let me talk about the Arsenal average positions from the game against Forest, because I don't think I've ever seen an average position map quite like it. You got this cluster of almost every player from defence to midfield on the pitch, and then the front three are almost in islands of their own. Madueke, the highest of the three players, the Gyokeres number 14 and Eze number 10 there, they seem quite distant. It almost feels the longest I've ever seen Arsenal from back to front on an average positions map. They're normally quite condensed. They normally move up and down the pitch as a unit, but the three certainly had an ability and a license to be much higher up the pitch. We've also seen this. The long passes attempted per game from Arsenal has gone up from last season's 53.2 per game to 63.5. Now, again, all this comes with a massive caveat. Firstly, we're only 4 games in. Secondly, we're having to get these players in the team in the absence of Havertz and Saka, so whether this is long term is another thing. But thirdly, we've played Liverpool, who play on the front foot. We've played Leeds, who play on the front foot. We've played against Nottingham Forest just now under Ange Postecoglou, typically a team that want to play with a high line and up the pitch on the front foot. So Arsenal might well have seen spaces to exploit. But I don't think this is just circumstantial. I don't think this is just a case of a coincidence leading to a set of improved stats in certain areas. I think Arsenal want to go long and want to be more direct. And we talked about this in pre-season, by the way, but I think we're actually seeing it come to fruition. Let me show you some examples of it. And of course, the most obvious example is the goal Gyokeres scored the other day against Forest, where Calafiori, in an inverted position, plays a brilliant ball over the top to Eze. And again, this is Arsenal making use of the average positions of Eze, Gyokeres and Madueke being higher up the pitch. He plays a brilliant pass to Eze, who lets the ball sort of run across him over the defender, and then with his left foot guides it brilliantly across goal for Gyokeres to score, and Arsenal go 2-0 up early in the second half. By that point, we're cruising, but it was a lovely pass from Calafiori and a brilliant run by Eze. And it's funny how Eze's seen more as a 10, but we've always argued in those wider areas, he's got the pace, he's got the directness to actually make use of the kind of responsibilities given to Arsenal's left winger. Eze's a really good profile fit, and he saw it with that goal there. But this isn't the first time we've seen Arsenal go long and direct to the channels, or to the wingers, shall I say. Let me show you this screenshot here from a lovely ball from Raya to Madueke, who isolates him against Gyokeres 1-on-1. Now, Gyokeres did quite well in that individual battle, but Madueke was giving him problems whether he received the ball to feet and he was running at him, or from making runs from the long balls played by Arsenal. Another example of Arsenal looking to go direct to their wingers. And this one, another pass from Calafiori, and I've got to say, this was nearly a Calafiori breakdown video, and later you'll see why. But Calafiori's been really, really crucial to this. But again, it's a ball over the top. This time it's Gyokeres making the run in the channel. We know that's his signature move from his time at Sporting. It's a really lovely clip pass, and he does all the work after to score against Leeds and put us 3-0 up. Now, when you've got players like Eze who've got that pace, Madueke who does as well, and Gyokeres, let me show you the stats, where you can see that he ranked, I think, in the 89th percentile for runs in behind in, what's this? Yeah, percentile versus centre forwards across the top 7 European leagues. When you've got players that can do these things, you've got to play to their strengths. You've got to play in a way that allows you to free up a Gyokeres in behind, that gives Eze and Madueke the space to make those kinds of runs. And I think Arsenal are adapting to them really, really well. But when you look at stats like that, that is Arsenal adapting to the strengths of the players they've brought in. But I also don't think Arsenal are completely, ripping up the playbook. I don't think Arteta's gone, well, everything we did before didn't work, so now we're just going to play to these new players' strengths. I think they're also adapting, or should I say benefiting, from Arteta's tactics. I want to show you this, because the direct play and the going long is giving the wingers unpredictability. But so are the fullbacks, and this is where Arteta's principles are coming into play a little bit more. This screenshot here has Calafiori in a more inverted position, but the wider player on the left there for Arsenal is Mikel Merino. Not an alien position for him, not an alien position for Granit Xhaka, but what we've got is our wider players in Calafiori and Eze tucking in, and Merino, our more central player, going wide, creating rotations, creating unpredictability. That unpredictability unlocks our wingers and gets them doing the things they do best. So the ball comes to Merino out wide, and where's Eze? He's in the pocket, ready to receive the ball in those spaces. He was very, very comfortable picking up the ball in for Palace, probably where he plays his best football. Let's move it to another graphic where we've got, here we go, Timber on the ball. Arsenal very condensed in central spaces, as you'd expect. Madueke, the widest player on the right, but on the left, it's not Eze. He's actually a little bit more tucked in, and Calafiori is in acres of space because Arsenal have drawn the opposition in. Forest are really condensed in that middle of the pitch. Calafiori, who had been more central in build-up, and like he was central with the goal that we talked about, he's now much, much wider to receive the ball. We'll go one on, and this time Calafiori is tucked in next to Zubimendi and Odegaard to create a 3-3 build-up, with Merino getting up the pitch near Gyokeres, Eze out wide, and Madueke. So you've got more of a 3-3-4, something I actually talked about in terms of the PSG game last season. I wondered whether we'd get Merino more into those areas. We didn't see it. I think injuries played a part, but it's something Arsenal can do, and I think Lewis Skelly will pick up that area next to a Zubimendi, next to an Odegaard as well, to ensure that someone like Merino, who's got those attacking runs in him, who's got that goal-scoring threat, can get nearer to goal. We might even see Kai Havertz in that position at some point too. But again, Calafiori picking up 3 very different positions, a sort of position alongside Zubimendi, then a position in a 3-3, and then a little bit wider too. Let me show you how Timber compares, because Timber was making lots of inverted runs, this time not so much to give Madueke an unpredictability in position, because Madueke was out wide a lot, but he was driving inside to ensure that Madueke was always isolating the fullback. Here we can see him making an underlapping run to ensure that Madueke doesn't get doubled up on, making sure that there's another player to keep an eye on. And this is another one where he's not quite making the underlapping run, he's more just holding a tucked in position. Madueke once again is about to receive the ball to go one-on-one with the fullback. And what I think is so clever about Arsenal in these positions, we talked about going long and being direct to get the most out of the pace you've got in behind that, especially Madueke and Gyokeres will want to take advantage of, as they did the other day. But the principles Arteta have, or has, should I say, is all about ensuring that we isolate the wings with our fullbacks. So Arteta could have gone into this season ripping up the playbook, going, it didn't work, we're going to play a different way, maybe a little bit more creativity, maybe 4-4-2, maybe more direct through the middle. But I don't think Arteta got all this way with Arsenal just to rip it up because it didn't work at the final hurdle. I think it was about adding and going a level above and making sure that in the channels where Arsenal are really effective, we had just an elevated performance. Players who could take more advantage of the tactics that Arteta has put in place. And that's where Madueke and Eze really come to the fore. This is where, with Bukayo Saka when he's to return too, this is where these players are major signings for Arsenal and major players who are going to get the most out of what Mikel wants to do. Let me show you here Madueke's FB ref stats with successful take-ons, having him in the 84th percentile last season, 1.99 successful take-ons per 90, ranking as one of the best in the Premier League. Madueke, and Eze goes one better in the 90th percentile, 2.33 successful take-ons per 90. So yeah, we're going longer, But the football that we funnel through the middle of the pitch to isolate our wingers against fullbacks is also designed to ensure that the better players we now have in those positions, okay, Bukayo Saka when he's fit, but we know he spent a lot of time injured, so it was Trossard at times on the right, it was Martinelli. Those better players are now taking advantage of Arteta's tactics. And I find it really interesting how, yes, there's a tweak to go longer, more, there's a tweak to be more direct, but actually the use of the fullbacks, tucking them in different ways, the unpredictability of the way they play is giving our wingers a little bit more freedom and license, because the opposition don't know what to do, and when they do get it, they're given the freedom, as Madueke has spoken about in a post-match interview, they're given the freedom to then tear apart the opposition fullback in the way that I think Mikel Arteta has been trying to get out of his team for years and years. And Bukayo Saka has done it brilliantly for a long time. But because he's been the only threat, they double up on him, they congest that side of the pitch, and on the left, we're left with very, very little threat. Arsenal are getting that balance a lot more. I'm excited to see whether this carries on for a few more games. There are sterner tests to come. We obviously travelled to Bilbao against Athletic Club in the Champions League. We've got Man City to come, and we've got Newcastle away as well. If these tactics bear fruit in those games, then I'll be saying that Mikel Arteta's overall philosophy for how he wants Arsenal to play can absolutely take Arsenal over the line to win major trophies now that he's got the players capable of doing it. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section below, but the early signs look good. Arsenal beat Forest 3-0, and of course we'll be back on Goonerverse News tomorrow for a match report as Arsenal kick off their Champions League campaign. Catch you in a bit.